04:30 a.m. Bryansk Oblast, Russia. This is Ukraine's homegrown RK-360 MLP Neptune missile, a coastal defender turned land attack ninja, and it has exactly 280 seconds to turn a $100 million drone factory into the spectacular end-of-month fireworks show Russia never ordered. This wasn't a lucky guess. Ukrainian intelligence spent 6 months patiently tracking thermal signatures from the plant's aluminum smelters and even hacked the test flight signals of new drones, using AI to pinpoint the factory's exact location. The Neptune itself was launched from a launcher disguised as a civilian Ural truck, its heat signature masked, ready to vanish seconds after firing. On the commander's tactical map, the factory is surrounded by a pulsating red circle, the engagement bubble of a Russian Panzer S-1, a mobile shield bristling with missiles. But the commander sees another layer. From the east, a second icon shows a swarm of 25 cheap FPV drones, using the 15 Maubiyar or autumn wind to ride a wave of electronic chaos directly toward the Russian defenses. The commander allows himself a grim smile. Putin thinks he's safe after the election, he thinks. We're sending his electric bill a little early this year. The hunt is almost over, and the fireworks are just getting started. 04:15 a.m. 15 seconds before the main event, 25 FPV drones roared to life from the east, a swarm of angry electronic hornets. They climbed to 1,000 feet and flooded the area with broadband jamming across 5.2, 5.9 GHz and 10 to 18 GHz bands. 3 of them even carried small 2-pound charges that detonated in mid-air, creating the bright flash and mini EMP pulse of a much larger cruise missile. It was like setting off the fire alarm in the lobby while the real heist slips in through the back door. As Russian radar operators began screaming about a massive incoming attack from the east, the real show began. On a dark forest road, the canvas top of a beat-up Ural 4320 truck peeled back, revealing 4 USPU 360 launch canisters. The truck's secret wasn't just its civilian disguise. It was a shell of aluminum and insulating foam, making its scorching hot 750-degree F launch tubes invisible to thermal sensors. In a sequence of perfectly timed earth-shaking roars, 4 Neptune missiles launched in just 60 seconds. And a mere 90 seconds after the last missile cleared its tube, the launcher was packed up and racing away into the forest. It didn't just run, it left behind its own ghosts. 2 small kamikaze drones were left hovering where the launcher had been, and they began broadcasting a fake heat and radio signature, moving in the opposite direction of the truck's real escape route. Meanwhile, the 4 Neptune missiles dove low, dropping to just 50 feet off the ground. They began their deadly journey by terrain surfing, using an AI fed with US geological data to fly along a river of low-lying terrain, hugging the Earth's curves like a race car on a track to stay below the radar horizon. Their advanced turbofan engines, pushing 2,100 pounds of thrust, were 40% more efficient than the original naval version, giving them the legs for this deep strike. Back in Kiev, the commander watched a single decoy blip disappear from his screen, shot down by a panicked Panzer crew. He smiled. It was a perfect trade. By the time they figure it out, our launcher will be 15 miles away and having breakfast. 04:25 a.m., 10 miles from the factory, the Panzer S-1 crew finally realized they were being played. The decoy swarm from the east was still lighting up their screens, a chaotic mess of over 300 false targets dancing in the wind. The radar dish spun at 6 RPM, its processor overloaded with over 300 false. It was like a fighter pilot's HUD in a dogfight, red alerts everywhere, no clear lock. And in that moment of electronic chaos, the real threat appeared. 4 tiny, low-flying contacts materialized on the very edge of their screen, skimming the tree line. This is the moment the villain of our story truly shows up for work. The Panzer isn't just a truck with missiles, it's a 4,400-pound beast of Russian engineering. Its 57 E-6 missiles are designed to accelerate to 4 times the speed of sound and deliver a 50-pound warhead with pinpoint accuracy. This is the system that has reportedly taken down over 200 Ukrainian drones. It's a seasoned, lethal veteran of this war. Inside the command vehicle, a young Russian lieutenant is probably sweating through his uniform. He screams orders, trying to get his crew to ignore the decoy storm and focus on the real incoming threats. Forget the swarm! Low targets, west sector! But it's too late. The decoy swarm was designed to do more than just distract. It was designed to exploit a critical flaw in the Panzer's programming. The system is built to prioritize high-altitude, high-speed threats like jets and cruise missiles. It sees the decoy swarm at 1,000 feet as the primary danger. It's like a high-end antivirus software that's so busy fighting off annoying pop-up ads that it completely misses the sophisticated malware that's sneaking in through the back door. 04:27 a.m. The 4 Neptune missiles are now practically mowing the lawn, screaming through the dark Russian forest at just 50 feet off the ground. This isn't just low flying, this is an active, intelligent dance with the landscape. The missile's AI is using the rolling hills of Bryansk as a physical shield, hugging every curve, dipping into every valley, ensuring that for the Russian radar operators 8 miles away, it remains completely hidden by the curvature of the Earth. While this deadly game of hide-and-seek happens on the ground, the real chaos is in the air. The decoy swarm is putting on the performance of a lifetime. They are painting a complete digital lie across the Russian radar screens, making it look like a massive high-altitude attack is the main threat. Inside his command vehicle, the Russian lieutenant is staring at this lie, and his by-the-book training is failing him. He sees dozens of high-altitude threats, and his instinct, his entire military education, screams at him to engage the biggest, loudest group. He's trying to fight a ghost army in the sky, completely oblivious to the 4 real assassins crawling right underneath his feet. And that is the genius of the Ukrainian strategy, what they call geomagnetic surfing. The AI guiding the Neptune wasn't just given a map, it was taught to read the terrain's soul. Custom built in Kharkiv, its neural network spent months studying US satellite data, learning to treat the landscape not as an obstacle, but as a weapon. This, combined with the electronic blizzard from the FPVs, a tactic a recent RAND Corporation report estimates can cut a Panzer's effectiveness by 70%, creates a perfect storm of confusion. This highlights the critical difference between the two systems. The Neptune is a flexible assassin, brilliantly adapted for this new kind of warfare. The Panzer, however, is a rigid giant. It's a fantastic system for open plains, but its clunky hardware and rigid software are simply outmatched here. Data shows its effectiveness plummets by 40% in this kind of terrain. Ukraine didn't just find a gap in Russia's defenses, they turned Russia's own geography into their most effective weapon, a strategy that no military textbook in the world could teach you. 04:28 a.m. Just when the Ukrainian commander thought his plan was flawless, the battlefield decided to fight back. The first decoy FPV slammed into the ground, its small 5-pound warhead detonating. It wasn't designed to do real damage, but it created a localized momentary electromagnetic pulse, a mini EMP. This cloud of electronic chaos was meant to further blind the Russian radar. But then, a cruel twist of fate. A sudden gust of wind pushed the EMP cloud directly into the path of the lead Neptune missile. For a few critical seconds, its GPS signal began to flicker. It was like trying to use Google Maps in a tunnel. The connection was degrading. Seizing the opportunity, the Russian commander unleashes his final desperate gambit. He orders the Krasuka 4 jamming system to full power, blanketing the entire radio spectrum from 1 to 18 gigahertz with a brutal, overwhelming wall of noise. This isn't just jamming, it's an attempt to electronically suffocate everything in the air. One of the Neptune missiles, its GPS already weakened, suddenly goes blind. Back in Kiev, the commander's screen for that missile turns to static. "We've lost the link," someone shouts. For a moment, it looks like Russia's brute force approach might actually work. The Russian lieutenant, seeing the missile's signal vanish, probably lets out a triumphant laugh. "Ha! Our jamming is like vodka," he might think. It paralyzes everything. But he's celebrating too soon. This is the moment Ukraine reveals its ace in the hole. The missile's AI, sensing the catastrophic signal loss, doesn't panic. It instantly switches to its backup plan. Unspooling from inside the missile's fuselage is a 10-mile-long, hair-thin fiber optic cable. This is a unique French-Ukrainian technology, a hardline connection that is 100% immune to jamming. While the Russians were trying to shout down a radio, the Ukrainians just picked up a private landline. The AI doesn't even need the commander's input anymore. It switches to a real-time terrain learning mode, using its own laser altimeter to read the ground with 3-foot accuracy and comparing it to the last known satellite data. It's no longer just following a map, it's creating a new one, live, as it flies. The Russians thought they'd cut the signal. Ukraine just switched to a hardline. The game of cat and mouse continues, and the Russians are still chasing a ghost. 4:29 a.m. Through the Neptune's optical seeker, the Novobryansk UAV factory materializes from the dark. It's a 1,000-foot-long metal beast, and through the thermal lens, the AI can see the heat signatures of over 200 workers on the night shift assembling the very Orlan 10s that have plagued Ukrainian troops. But the missile's primary targeting solution isn't just looking at the building. It's locking onto the real prize, the glittering 500 MVA substation next to it. That substation is the factory's heart, pumping 330 megawatts of power into the production line. Inside the Panzer, the lieutenant is in a full-blown meltdown. A single, low-altitude, high-speed signature has finally cut through the jamming, a dagger aimed at his throat. He screams, "Fire!" and the Panzer spits its very last missile into the night. But it's a shot of pure desperation. The missile, confused by the lingering electronic noise and the target's terrain-hugging flight path, misses by a staggering 200 yards, exploding harmlessly against a hillside. The giant is out of ammunition. He's helpless. The Neptune missile enters its terminal phase. The wind screams over its control surfaces as it makes its final AI-guided corrections. The rolling hills of Bryansk, which have been its shield for the entire journey, seem to embrace it one last time before letting it go, releasing it for its final, inevitable appointment with its target. 04:30 a.m. Traveling at 550 miles per hour, the 4 Neptune missiles began their final terminal dive. They weren't just falling, they were hunting. Their extended range wings flared, using the 15 km/h autumn wind and the force of gravity to steer themselves into a perfectly synchronized 4-point strike. The first impact was a masterpiece of kinetic violence. Neptune 1 didn't just hit the roof of the Novobryansk UAV factory. Its hardened tungsten core penetrator slammed into the reinforced concrete just 3 feet from the main ventilation shaft. It punched through 18 inches of reinforced concrete as if it were cardboard, a 1.2 million joules of kinetic energy, equivalent to a 20-ton truck at 100 mph that tore a hole for the warhead that followed. And then, the science of destruction took over. The genius wasn't in the bang, but in the brains. Each missile's proximity fuse was programmed with a precise 0.8-second delay. This wasn't a mistake, it was a tactical masterstroke. The delay ensured the 330-pound warhead was inside the main assembly hall before it detonated. It's the difference between knocking on a door and kicking it in, than setting off a bomb in the living room. What followed was a lesson in contained overpressure. The warhead released 1.6 gigajoules of energy in 0.02 of a second. Trapped by the concrete walls, the 25 psi blast wave had nowhere to go. It ricocheted, multiplied, and became a moving wall of force. It was like shaking a soda can and then detonating it from the inside. The factory's main H-beam support columns, designed to withstand vertical load, buckled instantly as the horizontal blast wave hit them. The entire roof collapsed in a domino effect of shrieking metal, crushing 50 nearly completed Orlan 10 drone frames on the assembly line below. Simultaneously, the blast wave ripped open the 1,200-degree aluminum smelter, unleashing a river of molten metal that set everything it touched ablaze. The factory wasn't just hit, it was surgically destroyed from the inside. 14 minutes after impact, the scene was one of total industrial annihilation. Of the 200 workers on the night shift, early reports suggested over 87% were casualties, not from the initial blast, but from the hail of shrapnel that turned the factory floor into a blender. 50 Orlan 10 airframes, a $5 million direct loss, were now just mangled pieces of a larger scrap heap. The Russian lieutenant, who had been commanding the Panzer, was now coordinating a frantic but futile rescue effort. But as Spetsnaz units finally sealed the area, all they found was a smoldering 60-foot wide crater where a factory used to be. A crater that, according to the Ukrainian commander's satellite feed, was a 100% perfect match for the Neptune's expected blast radius. But the real impact wasn't measured in craters or twisted steel. It was measured in the strategic paralysis that followed. The Bryansk UAV Coordination Center, the brain that supplied 500 Orlan 10s a month to the Donbass front, went silent, and for the next 72 hours, the effect on the battlefield was catastrophic. An estimated 30% of Russia's drone reconnaissance on the Pokrovsk front simply vanished. Their artillery batteries, now blind, were firing with a 400-yard margin of error. Ukraine seized this window of blindness, launching a coordinated push on 8 different fronts and recapturing over 12 square miles of territory in just 48 hours. The logistical chain was frozen. Putin was reportedly forced to divert $500 million for emergency repairs, and Russian commanders, now terrified of a follow-up strike, became paralyzed by paranoia. That night, Ukraine proved a powerful lesson in modern warfare. Victory doesn't always belong to the side with the most expensive weapons. It belongs to the side that is smart enough to turn its enemy's own geography against them, to weaponize the very hills and valleys of their heartland. And in doing so, they forced a superpower to pay the ultimate price for its own arrogance.